Okay. It says we're live. I think we're live.
Usually that's true.
Usually that's true. We have no music.
Unfortunately, can't welcome people to this with some shitty music played off of our cell phones because
It's unfortunate.
Facebook hates us. Or maybe, I guess, some companies hate us.
Someone definitely hates us.
Someone is mad. Very, very mad at us. I don't know who it is.
Where's my...
But
okay,
Des has lost something. And welcome to Suicide and Stuff.
Welcome.
We have Ysabel Garcia from Estoy Aqui. And I will go around and do a round of introductions. But first, we should probably tell you about our rating because it's hard for me to get through an introduction without cussing. So we are rated R for language, terror, and some disturbing images. So if you're under 17, you need to have a parent or adult guardian tell you you're allowed to be here or whatever. I guess, if you want to, or just know that we're going to say some stuff. And if you're older and you care, you should watch a different show. So I am Jess Stohlmann-Rainey, and I wrote out an intro so I don't mess it up all the time. So I love to talk about suicide, obviously. I'm a mad queer feminist witch and healer and care worker, and I live in so-called Denver, Colorado, which is originally Arapaho, Cheyenne, Ute, and Sioux land. I've spent my career doing work around creating pathways to intersectional justice-based emotional support, primarily working with marginalized communities. I believe in mutual aid and disability justice and abolition and other liberation ideologies. I think they're integral to solving the problems that lead to suicide. And right now I'm super interested in talking and thinking about epistemology, capitalism, and ethics in the context of this work. So if you ever want to push play on a thing for me to talk about, any of those are good ones. And I'll never shut up about those in relationship to suicide or even not in relationship to suicide, which you all have probably heard on this show before. I'll let Des introduce herself and then we'll let our guests go.
I'm Des. I did not write down my intro. I need to do that, but I have not done that. I run livethroughthis.org, which is a series of portraits and true stories of suicide attempt survivors across the U.S. I feel like I do a lot of stuff, so I never know what to say. Yeah. I live in so-called Philly, which is Lenny Lenape land. What else do I do? I produce this thing. My dog wants to go out again. I'm remodeling my house. I think about suicide nonstop, not in like the suicidal way that just happens sometimes. What else? I don't know. I run 34 projects. I'm an MSW student, and I don't know. I just do a lot of stuff. That's all I got.
I think that's enough. I didn't mean to put pressure on you by being like, introduce yourself like we do every week.
I always feel pressure. I
know. I'm sorry. I'll write you an intro and then introduce you next time. Does that help?
Maybe. Or I can just write my own too,
Oh, that's true. You can do it. I believe in you.
I could be a grown-up.
All right. Ysabel, do you want to go?
Sure. So I didn't write my introduction either. My name is Ysabel Garcia. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a first-generation Dominican immigrant. I live in Springfield, Massachusetts currently. I consider myself a psychiatric system survivor because of my experience with residential programs. And I also the founder of Estoy Aqui, a community care approach to suicide prevention. I offer racial justice-based training in regards to suicide. And I also do community care circles as well that explore wellness as a social justice issue. Oh, I'm also getting my master's in public health. I always forget to say that.
Right.
For some reason. Yeah.
Oh yeah, education is always kind of like a side gig to like doing the real work, right? It's like, oh, I'm gonna try and get these letters so that people let me do things in other spaces.
That's really it.
Yeah, they should
Nice
just,
perfectly.
yeah, we should just get letters for lived experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
I already put in a lot of years on this.
So many.
So many years of studying how to survive psychiatry, right? Like,
Really.
Yeah.
so, so if you want to just tell us a little bit about like what makes you interested in suicide or suicidology or suicide prevention, however you think about those terms. You can tell us how you think about those terms too. If you don't like them very much, because I'm not a fan, but I don't know what to use.
Yeah, and that's a beef actually. The word, I have a beef with the word prevention in the way that the field uses the concept of prevention. But I could go on a rant about that.
We'll save that for the beef corner.
Yep.
Sure. So suicide has always been part of my life. It's just I cannot even say an age because it's just like I don't remember like an age that I'm like, yeah, I didn't think about dying that one time. It's always been there. It's like a shadow. And I know that sounds really sad, but for me, it's just normal to think about it, to think about dying. And so, but when I realized that I was like, oh crap, maybe I'm different, it was around 8 years old. That's when I started. So interest in suicide forever, but professionally, I got, I studied psychology as an undergrad, and then I started to see the dehumanization of psychology and started to get really angry. And so then I started to take suicide prevention training, right? Because I wanted to learn more about what's happening to me, right? And I got even angrier. And so that's why I'm here.
What kind of training you took? What kind of suicide prevention training did you do?
You know, the wonderful QPR, the wonderful Leading Works, the wonderful the other thing.
A whole
Safe
tour.
What is it? Safe something.
Oh yeah, safe talk.
Safe talk. Yeah,
the wonderful mental health first aid. The wonderful. I have no idea how many wonderfuls. There's so many others. I forgot. However, I'm gonna put this out there. I have taken alternatives to suicide prevention by the Western Mass Recovery Learning Center, and I love it.
That's a good one.
It's a perfect, not in my opinion, but that's the best one I have taken for sure. I'm a fan of peer support, everything really. But yeah, that was my tour of suicide prevention training that made me mad. Very angry. And so that's how it all started for me. That's how I started figuring out how do I enter this field but not to be part of it necessarily, more to disrupt it.
Yeah. God, I spent so much time when I first started in this field, like trying to fit myself into it instead of disrupting it. And I just wish I could have some of those years back a little bit, because I just didn't know. I didn't know at the time how to do that. I was very, very afraid, especially as a voice hearing person. I was very, very afraid of like being discovered as a lived experience person. So, so I'm glad that things are different now. I think and I think I'm not the only person who feels that way. Certainly, you're not the only person who felt the way that you did about your tour of the prevention things. Even like the other day, Des was like, let's adapt QPR. And I was like, no, I will never teach QPR again.
Ysabel and I have talked about that.
Here's the thing. Here's
about it in a suicide and stuff chat.
Yeah. Here's one of my secrets. It's not a secret anymore because I'm gonna say it. Get ready. I'm a QPR certified instructor.
Of course.
Why? Because I'm a hypocrite. Oh, no, I'm just kidding. I'm not a hypocrite. I got pressure to take it because, again, this idea of credibility and BS. So I took it. And it wasn't, honestly, it was like an 8-hour training.
Yeah.
And the facilitator was not bad at all. Like, it was not like, but I'm sorry, I hate it.
I'm also a trainer, and I've trained a lot of people in it. And I think when I was training in it, I did a lot of things to try and like buffer it. I would be like, let's talk about all this other stuff too. And what if when you make a referral, it's not always to 911 or even the crisis line or whatever. Like maybe you just hang out with a person because they need support. I know it's a wild concept, but
inconvenient.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have been a trainer in all except for mental health first aid, which I just basically outright rejected. I was like, I can't do this. Because I think for me that felt like the worst one. Outside of that, I tried to adapt things and like make them work for me, but they just don't.
Well, that's the hard thing because there is beyond alternatives to suicide, which I haven't taken and seems to be hard to get into.
Yeah.
Right now, it's like, what is there? There is nothing yet. So QPR has the name recognition and the double-edged sword of being adaptable. So I'm like trying to find ways in because the core slides that you have to use they're just wrong. It's not just that it's a bad training, it's fucking wrong.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's incorrect.
Yep.
And they tell you like, oh, you can't edit this or whatever. So I figured out how to put 2 slides next to each other, 2 different slide decks. So I can be like, well, here's what this one says, and here's how I proved it wrong.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I wish there was more for us because it's like, well, of course shit's bad because there's nothing good for the people who are like trying to do better things to work with and like get out there. And the QPR name recognition is like not important, but it's helpful. I don't fucking know. This is hard. Yeah. I don't like it. I want us to be able to just get everyone and help them think about it.
Yeah, it's just peer support. We just need to train people to do peer support and make that accessible and just like stop with the public health, like cookie cutter, everybody does the same training bullshit. Like, why do we think that every community is the fucking same? Why do we want to do that? That's so out of control. I know that's kind of where we're headed tonight. So,
kind of
exactly where we're headed. So let's talk about that because some of the things that are really wrong in QPR, I think, and all the other trainings. Like, let's be clear. I don't want to just go after QPR. I think there's a whole lot of trash for us to sift through out there, and like a few things that are kind of cool in the middle of that. So one of the big things that I think is wrong is that we talk about risk and protective factors in ways that are not culturally relevant to people and don't even accurately portray the data or how it's collected or anything. There's just no nuance. So let's talk about that because I know you've got a rant for this one.
Oh my gosh. It's just, first of all, in every single, well, not all of them, but most of them, there's always talk about risk factors, right? There's always talk about risk factors.
Yeah.
But if you look at them, it's always the same. I always get like, it's always the same. And I'm not saying they're not valid and that is not true. But let's really think about them. Like, it's always history of suicide, alcohol and drugs. What else? Past attempts, genetics. I don't even know. There are a lot of them. But they never talk about shit like systemic racism.
Right.
Colorism. Microaggressions. Hello? Never. I never taken a suicide prevention training that has mentioned those things.
No.
Okay? Not even alternatives to suicide. That's my favorite. None of it. Colorism. Come on. Anti-blackness. You know how much of a risk factor that is for especially, oh my God, that the Latinx community. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yet, we don't talk. I'm telling you, we don't talk about it. We also don't talk about intergenerational trauma.
Right.
Why? How is it that we miss out on that? And not even like, again, as an immigrant, I never seen the trauma attached to immigration as a risk factor in any curriculum or training. Never. The acculturation that comes with immigrating to this country, and for instance, not knowing the language.
Yeah.
That is a risk factor. That is a risk factor for me. Yeah, I never seen it in any materials, in anything. So there's always that missing from me. Yeah. And then you have the idea of protective factors. First of all, there are trainings that don't even talk about protective factors. They're like risk factors, warning signs. But the ones that do, it's like very quick. It's like family, religion, culture. Oh, and maybe you are protected from suicide because your religion might not like it. So good luck. I'm like, what the hell? Come on. So it's always like from a very deficit perspective. I never see strength. I never see like the empowerment of or the beauty of culture in those protective factors. Never. I don't know. There's there's always that missing from everything that I take educationally or messaging or campaigns or whatever it is. I never get that. And also the complexity of protective factors. Family could be a protective factor and also a risk factor.
Yeah.
Because we have things like familism that is very strong in Black and Latinx community. And that could be a risk factor. Again, we don't touch on that. I never taken a training that touches on familism. Or in cultural clashes between, again, with immigration, the autonomy, independence, how it differs from whiteness and the Latinx culture. I could speak about this for hours, but basically the message that I want to put out there, bruh, there are way more risk factors than you think you know, and way more protective factors that we're missing out of. And it's sad.
Well, I think it's just like, what is our desire to conceptualize things in this way? Where's that coming from? Because, like, what if we talked about risk factors or like things that might drive people to suicide as like experiences they have that make them feel alone, lost, like a burden? Like, we know some of these things that I feel like those would be, like, if we took that sort of broader perspective and just talked about an experience that makes someone have this perception or this feeling, that would be a little more accurate. It still wouldn't be totally accurate, but it would at least account for some like ability for us to like think about this differently. So much of this has been driven by the idea that we do like psychological research on suicide, right? So everything we're looking for is something that's inside the person. And we have a bunch of white researchers and a bunch of white organizations funding all of this work. So it's white people asking white people questions and then finding white people results. And then everyone's surprised that like people of color do not feel connected to the research. And it's like, no shit, because you never ask them a question. Or when you ask them a question, you ask a bunch of irrelevant, like erroneous bullshit that people don't want to answer, or that makes you like, you're not safe. You're wearing your white coat and you've been like punishing people and locking them up for years. And then you're like, why don't they want to talk to me about this? Like this is how you end up in this position where all of your work only works for a certain specific amount of people. And then you try to apply it to everyone. It's out of control. I don't get it. Makes me very mad. Try not to do too long of a rant there. I get really riled up about stuff.
You?
I know, nobody's used to it. So I think they also miss out on these like really beautiful, like poignant things about what makes people live. And when you're doing actual suicide prevention work, I feel like I have more conversations about living than I do about dying. All the time. I feel like the people working on my crisis line do, the people working in peer support do, and we are not equipping people to talk about living.
Right.
We're only equipping people to talk about risk. And so like that's a really big deal.
Exactly. I agree with that. Yeah.
All right. Is it time for beefs? Does it feel like time for beefs?
Do we think it? I mean, I feel like we were already beefing, but
we were already beefing, but we can put the beef in the background. We like really, this is all just one big beef corner, right?
I swear to God, if we get in trouble,
it's going to be beefs holding still. If we get in trouble, everyone should punch Facebook.
I mean, I want to punch Facebook anyway, but
punch Facebook anyway. Yeah.
Beef intro.
Oh my God.
Introducing Jess to this video is one of my greatest accomplishments.
Wow.
It just never gets boring.
Yeah, Doja Cat is just, I just love her.
Never boring.
Oh, who wants to start with their beef?
I don't know. I don't even know what my beefs are.
You don't know what they are? Do you want me to go first? Or do you want to go?
Somebody else go first. I have something in my hair. Somebody else go.
All right, I'll do a quick beef. Right now, my beef is that suicide, this is not right now. This has been my beef for like fucking ever, but I'm really extra mad today about so suicide prevention is moving toward this whole 988 thing. What a great opportunity this could be to completely divest ourselves from 911 so that 988 and 911 are separate fucking interventions and you don't end up at 911 when you call 988. But we aren't talking about that shit at all. We aren't talking about it at all.
No.
They're putting all of this work in. Right now, if you call 988 from some phone companies, you're going to get directed to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline already, which is not cool because centers are not ready for that. And the calls will outpace what they're able to do. So that's fucked up. But also, like, this is our opportunity to say what we think these interventions should be as a field. And we are doing no critical thinking about that at all. And crisis centers, people who work in crisis all over the United States have strong feelings about collaborating with 911 and not wanting to do that. What they think we should be doing with active rescue, what they think we should be doing to connect with communities that we aren't currently connecting with, how we should be working with peer support. There are opinions about all of this in the community, and we aren't doing any work around it. All we're doing is saying, like, what are the boxes we need to check to turn this line on, and then we're gonna hand it off to people in a way that makes them do fucked up work that's gonna make people feel worse, and then people are gonna fucking die. People are going to die just as much when we turn on 988 if we don't do anything differently.
Yep.
Boom.
And the media, all of the stories, with the exception of one that I've seen so far, are about how great this fucking thing is.
0 out of 10.
So, and all of the people I know who do crisis work can't speak to the media about it. Yep. So that's a fucking problem. And, I'm doing my best when they call, but damn, like I had a conversation with a journalist about it yesterday. I was like, 988 is not this beautiful solution that people are saying it is.
Well, I can talk to journalists about it more now that we have, where our organization is trying to catch up, right? All of us in crisis work are trying to catch up to be able to say, like, this is what we want to, like, to have a consistent, clear message about 988. So, like, now I can talk about it, but I couldn't before we had a little bit more of a message about what we want to say. Because we want to be, unlike the fucking government, we would like to be thoughtful about how we support people.
That's weird.
Yeah, shocking. I don't know. It's almost like we give a shit about the people who want to call us.
That's so weird.
Anyway, so that's my beef today. Des, do you want to go next or you come next?
I don't know. What the fuck is my beef? My beef is with the whole world. Everything sucks. Every single fucking thing sucks right now.
We're in the worst timeline. What is
the worst one? You know what, though? I don't want to kill myself. I guess that's good. I mean, I don't want to be here, but I don't want to, like,
Right.
Like, I don't want to do it.
Oh, yeah. Is it because it's too much work or because it would hurt? Sometimes it's too much work and sometimes it would hurt too much.
No, mostly it's because I don't want to live in a world my grandfather doesn't live in. But, I mean, fuck a pandemic also. Like, that's not making life any easier. I would love to go to a bar and just get wasted and, deal with my grief that way too.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, being stuck at home and just sobbing over deli meat or whatever I've decided to sob about at any given moment that reminds me of him. It's fucking crazy. I hate it. I don't like it. So my beef is with the whole world, with grief, with everything.
Yeah, I'm having like a lot of murder urges lately, so that's fun.
Murder urges,
How
can we mishmash that into one word?
I don't know. Merges. It's not a very good one.
Merges.
Yeah. Merges. M-U-R-D-G-E-S. Merges.
Oh, yes, I see. Okay. I'm trying to think. My other beef is, obviously with social work, but I feel like that's kind of consistent at this point.
Yeah.
So, that's good. That's good.
You are definitely getting a social work education.
Oh my God. It really is something, because I feel like I just believe in the principles, but I think no one else does. And I mean, I've been having some conversations about, like, how even social work lies to itself. It's very much based in the foundations are super fucking racist and super abusive and awful, and no one talks about that. Yeah, I was having a good conversation about that on Twitter the other day, but
they're just like, oh, we have these values, and you're like, yeah, but remember back when you used to just abuse people and
like, how are we?
Maybe you kind of still do abuse people actually, but you don't call it abuse now. You call it active rescue, or you call it a mental health hold, or
a wellness check, a welfare check.
Yeah, involuntary treatment.
Yeah.
What
is it? Involuntary outpatient.
Oh yeah. Oh, assertive community treatment. Assertive meaning you don't have a choice, but we're gonna do it to you at home. Cool. Yeah, things are cool.
Everything's great. It's good. It's great.
All right. What beefs do you have, Ysabel?
Oh my gosh. I was thinking about this the whole day. I was like, oh my gosh, how do I say it? But fuck it. Okay. I have beef with self-care. Now, hear me out. Everyone who's, if you're watching me, please hear me out before you say.
I know what she's going to say.
Oh, why are you saying, why we're supposed to be taking care? Just hear me out. Just hear me out, please. Self-care is what? Okay?
Yeah, it is.
And it's rooted in capitalism. I am sorry. Just say whatever you want to say. This is my belief. It's white. It's not for me. It's not made for me. And I don't want to speak for all people of color because I cannot do that. But as me, as a Latina immigrant, it's not for me. It was not made for me. Now, why? Right? Because I'm like, it's not made for her. But why? One, self-care. There's a lot of guilt in self-care.
Yeah.
I don't know why people always miss that when they talk about self-care. The guilt that I feel when I exercise 3 times a week and I don't feel that fucking serotonin in my brain, that makes me more. That's a risk factor.
Yeah.
That makes me more depressed. So self-care actually hurts me more times than it helps me with the guilt that comes with it. And the idea of failure, and that's attached to whiteness. That's one of the things that I say is why. This idea of failure, that personal failure, individual failure,
Yeah, that's why
that is attached to self-care, I believe is very white. The other thing that I hate about self-care is when people push it to invalidate other people's feelings. If I say I want to kill myself, don't fucking tell me to do yoga. I don't need that. I don't need you to tell me that when I'm telling you that I don't want to exist in this world. So the idea of self-care has been also ingrained on, supporting other people kind of thing. But it really does, again, the idea of saying that, those kind of stuff, ends up becoming even more traumatizing for the person that needs help. And the other thing about self-care, man, to speak about this power, is that you have to work for it.
Yeah, so hard.
Capitalism 101. You want to feel well? Well, you have to work for it. You need to deserve it. You don't get those 8 hours of sleep because you have to deserve it. Everything is so white, and self-care is so white and capitalist. I cannot even. Like I cannot even. Like, and again, I can speak about this for hours, but I'm like, my whole thing is, why instead of saying, hey, let me what is this whole thing, let me drink this tea to lower my anxiety, right? That's great, but why don't we talk about why do you have anxiety in the first place?
Yes.
Why do you need self-care so much? Let's talk about that. Is it that your workplace is so fucking wide that they have you working more than 40 hours a week? That's what has to be fixed. That policy, that's what has to be fixed. So I think we need to focus more on the actual problem, so we don't end up needing so much of these, going to these guilt trips, because that's what self-care is for me, a bunch of guilt trips. I'm done. I could speak about this for like 5 hours.
I'm going to actually keep talking with you about it because I also just fucking hate self-care as a practice. So like every time I love to post things where I'm like I like hashtag it self-care and stuff because I think it's really funny. But like the concept of self-care comes from this space of thinking it's your fucking responsibility that you feel bad. And it's not. It's not your responsibility that you feel bad. The world is shitty. Our work is hard. We're doing it under systems that fuck us up. And then we have like spiritual pain because of it. And then we're supposed to put a fucking bath bomb Band-Aid on that? Like, that doesn't fucking help. And I like bath bombs and I like face masks. I'm going to do one later. My favorite thing to do with face masks is to do them with my roommate because it's like this sweet way that we take care of each other, not do self-care. It's the way we take care of each other. And that's wonderful. But it's not like, it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't fix the system. I still have to go out here and live in this world that's fucked up. I still have to do work that's hard, that challenges my ethics every fucking day, where I send people back into systems that hurt them every single day. None of that fixes any of it. So like some of the things that are like self-care to me are things that people don't think are self-care at all. Like, like reading some books about anti-capitalist thought, or like listening to Angela Davis speak, which I did right before this. Like that's the stuff that's self-care for me, because it makes me feel like maybe there's a better world. And it doesn't have to be like this, but just like, doing some yoga mostly makes me want to die, because yoga is terrible for me. I don't like it.
Dude.
But it's not the thing that I go to when I
no.
You have
Social work loves self-care.
They never shut up about it.
No.
Loves fucking self-care, but they will talk to you about the problems with capitalism and individualism. You never hear about collective care and mutual aid. You never hear that. It's like, oh, you're struggling? Go do some self-care. It's like, how do I even do self-care right now? So many fucking people are suffering. Who gives a shit about me? Like, who gives a single fuck?
Yeah.
And the thing that turned out to be self-care for me, self-care, is ranting about this shit. Having these epic Twitter rants about suicide and what we're doing wrong. And that is the only thing that makes me feel like anything is worthwhile right now.
Yeah.
Fuck a yoga.
Yeah, fuck yoga. I mean, do yoga if it makes you feel good, but do it in a non-appropriate way where you go. I'm not going to get into a whole thing. I'll put an article about how to do yoga in ways that are
so I shouldn't put locks in my hair before I go.
Why people with dreadlocks are just pervasive in Colorado. It's very, very upsetting. I'm gonna contain that one and put it on a shelf for another time, because I want to talk about community care, and I feel like this is a good transition into community care. First, I'm wondering if you can tell us about, like, when you say community care, what do you mean? And what does that look like for people, and why is it different and better than self-care?
So for me, community care, first of all, is a step forward from self-care. It's like, let me go to the next level. With community care, we are actually, first of all, we get away from that individual responsibility BS that comes from whiteness. And instead of being like, well, like you were saying, Jess, like this idea of, well, I feel bad, it's my fault. I exercise 3 days a week, didn't feel better, it's my fault, I suck, I cannot even do that right. Instead of that whole thing, let's depend on each other. Oh my God.
What?
Oh, but then we would have to trust each other and be vulnerable and make mistakes in front of other people.
No.
That would be weird.
I know. Oh my God. Can you imagine asking for help? And I say, can you imagine that? Yeah. So community care or collective care, again, we can call it, collective care as well. We take care of ourselves by depending on each other for support. And support, again, it has many definitions. Support can mean many different things for many people. It could be, hey, I'm moving and I need help with this fucking huge TV. Do you have a big car where I can put this TV? Like, come on, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't always have to be me crying and calling you and things like that.
Right.
It's about collaboration as well, But the idea of community care, what I love about it, besides interdependence, is that we're actually holding accountable systems.
Yes.
Not necessarily people for their well-being. We are looking deeper. We're looking at policies. We are not telling the single Black mother, get a pedicure to feel better. We're talking about living wage. Yeah. Oh, no. Who knew that could improve your life? Living wage. Yes. So that's
not appropriate.
That's why I love community care, and that's why Estoy Aqui is like Estoy Aqui, a community care approach to suicide prevention, because that's the message that I want to put out there. We have to hold accountable systems and policies and practices in order for us to really truly live life, like make life worth living, right? So that was my speech.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's so cool about community care or collective care, whichever people call it different things in different spaces, the things that's so cool about it is that you can also stop relying on systems that are not helpful when you have really good community care. So like if we were going to take policing as a system, as a thing to look at, if as communities we found other ways to hold each other accountable and we found other ways to respond to emergency, we could stop calling 911, and then I bet your ass the government would stop funding 911. But if we keep calling and we keep participating, if we play the game, then the game never changes, right? So that's what's so cool about it, is it not only points to the system and says this is what's wrong, we're going to create something different in opposition to it, but it also pushes those systems to change. Because then you can say, yeah, this is the alternative. Those things exist. There is an alternative to whatever that system is.
Exactly. Let's look at what already exists that is great about us.
Yeah.
Let's look at bartenders and hairstylists and barbers. Those are the original counselors.
Yeah.
Those are the originals. Those are the people that we should be talking to for research. Those are the ones that have, the valid source of data.
So
data.
Not white college students then?
No.
not white, straight, cis college students.
I thought that was who we were supposed to do the research on.
Well, they were the only ones that knew the answers. No.
Well, shit. I cannot imagine that we've been doing it wrong this whole time.
Des, we both got so excited and talked over each other.
I know, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Community care, looking at what already works. That works. Why are we not talking about that? Why are we not talking about the barbers and how they are a source of peer support?
Right.
For Black
because we already have our script.
White supremacy.
Yup. Yeah, and I think the other thing about community and collective care is that it pushes back against capitalism in ways that are really important, I think, because most people don't access that care through systems that are funded. So people are often, this can also be a problem for people. So people are often not employed in it, but we are creating intentional communities in our lives that like push back against those systems. And then we don't have to be accessing those things. And then they don't have to exist in the same ways. And like, we also become less dependent on the government, I think, that because like they're sure is not protecting us. Like they're like, the government's not protecting us. The only way we're protected is if we protect each other. And so that can be replicated in all kinds of different spaces, right? Is that we can protect each other against suicide. We can protect each other against capitalism. We can protect each other against the police. But we have to be intentional about doing that and identify that those things are the problem. It's not us.
Exactly. That's my point. Let's move from this individual thing to systemic.
Yeah.
Like who are we holding accountable? Again, that I want to see that shift.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so one of the things I talk about, this is just like ridiculous, but one of the things I talk about is that if I ever kill myself, I want to have an obituary that like names. And it doesn't have to be individual people, although we can do that too. But like we should be talking about
obituary.
We should be talking about what drives people to suicide. If we are not, when people die, if part of our like debriefing about losing someone to suicide is not talking about the systems in place that killed them, like what the fuck are we doing? Because
I mean, they made the choice to kill themselves, Jess. And it's a sin also.
Yeah, it's just incredible to me that we like deal with suicide death in this depoliticized way that never holds systems accountable. And like we kind of pretend we're like, oh, we don't want their family to be accountable or whatever. We don't want their family to be blamed for stuff, or don't blame them, where you like, glamorize people, whatever. But we're all doing all of that because we're not holding systems accountable. We're not pointing at the real fucking bad guy here. All right, what else do we need to talk
Did Beef
about?
Corner end?
No, I think it's just beef. That's what we're doing. Well, we can.
Okay, I'm going to change the color.
Okay. Uh-oh, be careful. Did changing the color do it? No, I think we're still on.
We'll know in 10 minutes.
Okay. Well, we'll almost be done in 10 minutes. So that's not too bad. So I wanted to talk about, so we've talked about like, there's problems with the way we think about risk and protective factors. There's problems with the self-care shit, and that community care can be an alternative. I'm interested to hear what your perspectives are on like alternative ways of collecting information. Like what information should we be collecting? Who should we be talking about? Like how should we be doing that? Because suicide prevention super doesn't know how.
That's what they tell you they do.
Oh yeah, they think they do, but they're wrong.
Because it's evidence-based, right?
Right.
They have numbers.
They're like, we ask the questions in a specific way and measure outcomes that prove us right, so we're evidence-based.
Ta-da!
Yay!
Okay.
We need to collect stories. That's my thing. That's my whole.
What?
Yes, I know.
It's like what you do, Des.
What the fuck?
we and like I am so, again, this is why supremacy, again, with the numbers, with the quantity, with the percentages, I get it, it's helpful, but I'm just saying we need to collect stories. Stories are a valid data source. They are. And I know, and if we go into the whole public health, wherever we talk about qualitative data, and there's a bunch of, oh, it's not reliable. How can you measure qualitative data? How can you measure it? But anyhow, I believe stories it is. And I believe that we should be collecting it from, like I said, the original counselors, like I said, like the barbers and like the hairstylists and the elder and the pastor. Those people, we should be talking, sharing information, right? It should be a collaboration too. We should be, going back and forth here with the people in the community. They have so much influence, and also, if I look at the field, specifically like psychology, public health field, the only type of research that I like is community-based participatory research.
Yeah.
And again, it depends on how you do it. Some researchers might do, who knows, but the original, right, community-based participatory research, you empower the community because you enter the community, but and there are different levels, but you literally let them collect the data. They are the researchers. They collect the data, and in some levels, they even analyze the results in some levels of community-based participatory research. I believe that is really the way to go when it comes to collecting data in terms of specifically suicide prevention or mental health.
I've always thought that psychological autopsies were really useful.
Psychological autopsy. Des wants to push all the buttons on me tonight. Psychological autopsy is also trash. There's a lot of trash. I said this earlier. Got to sift through it all.
Yes. No, I totally agree though on the participatory research.
Yeah. Community at the center then having the tools to go out there, do their own outreach, be part of the study design, and then the results, the conclusions, get them back to the community. Hello, like actually apply. As a community, let's learn from this research that we did, together. Let's interpret them together.
Instead of like collecting data and then putting it behind a paywall where only academics can access it and never fucking do anything with it.
Or
definitely don't share it.
Card. Here's your Dunkin' Donuts card. Thank you for the information. You will never see it again. But here's your Dunkin' Donuts card. Self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Get you a self-care coffee. Thank you for answering these questions.
Here's
also,
your
hello, hypocrite.
nail polish. Use it carefully. Okay. So we have a little bit of time left. I want you to just tell us everything that's awesome about Estoy Aqui.
Oh, wow. Everything that's awesome.
Not everything that's awesome, but enough to fill up the rest of our time. That's
okay. So, like I said at the beginning, Estoy Aqui, a community care approach to suicide prevention. So based on what I said about the lack of information on risk factors and protective factors that are relevant to BIPOC or Black and Brown people, I decided to build my own curriculum because and so I have, this curriculum where I actually talk about the relevant risk factors like colorism, anti-Blackness, white supremacy, forms of oppression. And then I talk about actually community, right? Community, family, culture, and how we use it to protect ourselves from many things, actually, not just suicide. But so I have built this, that curriculum and also a framework for community care and how to use it to support each other. And then community care circles. So I do circle practice, and it's specifically though for Black and Brown people or people of color. And it is meant for us to look at wellness from a systemic point of view. So I also have a podcast. I do have a podcast with Naomi Robles, who is a community organizer at Holyoke, and it's called The Collective Outliers. And you can look that up at Facebook, just The Collective Outliers. And we talk about the intersection of mental health and social justice issues. So like last week, we spoke about calling in versus calling out, and like which one is more relevant to mental health. Next week, we're going to talk about the price tag of social justice from grassroots to nonprofits. Why do we have the need to become a nonprofit every 3 seconds? Anyhow, that's another beef.
Same.
That whole podcast is going to be beef. Just be.
Do you need to borrow the image?
That's great. Yeah. I'm very excited to listen to that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I finally created a website. It is Estoy. I don't even know how to Estoy/Aqui.org. And I am currently offering one series of community care circles called Exploring Organizational Culture in Nonprofits. So it is for employees of color to so they can recognize and be aware of how white supremacy norms show up in different areas of the workplace, and how in the world survive all of those things. We have the information. We have survived. Yeah. We have the info. So how are we gonna put it out there, in a productive way and keep moving? So yeah, that's what I have.
That's great.
That's it.
Oh, yes.
That's not. I just really appreciate your work. It is nice to feel like in solidarity with some other people in the field, and it's hard to find. So I'm super excited we connected and that we got to have you on here. And probably we will ask you to come back again. We have been re-inviting people because there's so much more stuff to talk about. Oh, and I feel like maybe in Mental Health Month, we could just do like a whole, right? Because May is Mental Health Month. We could have a bunch of people on to talk about like how shitty mental health is. The month of beef with mental health as like a concept. Yes. But yeah, I feel like we could do a whole episode just on self-care and how stupid it is. So it's like I have so much more to say there. I feel like you do too. So yeah, I would love to have you back. Anything else you want to plug for people to check out while you have some time?
Well, Estoy Aqui on Facebook, Estoy Aqui community. Okay. And so the website, okay. And then what? And the Collective Outliers on Facebook as well.
That too.
And on Twitter, I am very new on Twitter, so it's a real account. It's not fake. I swear. It's on the screen as well. Estoy aquí, C capitalized. I'm just started on Twitter, so I guess I'm gonna see more beef there. A different type of beef.
Yeah, I mean, like to yell on Twitter a lot. Yeah. Yeah, we love to yell on Twitter, so you'll see us on there for sure.
Yeah,
shouting about.
I've been doing less yelling lately, so yeah. I don't know.
It's because I've been just doing more working, too much working. But
where are you working, capitalist?
I can't help it. I am white and like. Got me, yo.
Like that shit's ingrained.
Fully, like, have you seen how much skincare stuff I have in my bedroom? It's out of control. Out of control. Capitalism won. It got me. I think I feel better when I put that stuff on my face. I don't know. But I'm doing things to try and be better. So on that note, I guess we're wrapping up. Des, do you have any final things that you want to say before we're out of here? Hope. Next time do we have Craig Bryan next?
Yep.
Next time we have Craig Bryan, I'm super excited about this because we are going to talk about tort law. And tort law is the thing.
Sounds exciting.
It doesn't sound exciting, but here's why it's exciting. Because tort law is the reason that everyone thinks that mental health workers need to call 911. Or they need to hospitalize people. So I am going to be a big pill about that while we talk about tort law. And hopefully Craig Bryan still wants to talk to me again afterwards or not. I guess if he doesn't want to, then that's fine. But I'm really excited because I think this is so critical for people who work in mental health to truly understand why we do the things that we do, because most people have no idea. And you should be informed about the laws that you think you're enforcing. And then you should stop enforcing them because you have to start by killing the cop that's inside of you. And we can end there. Probably.
Put that there.
I find it's dope.
Kill the cop that's inside of you. I don't have time to.
You don't have time to put kill the cop inside you on it.
Hotline. Call the hotline. Just kidding.
Oh God. Okay. Thank you. This was really fun. The hour went so fast, and we'll have you back again.
Yay! Thank you.
All right, I'm ending this broadcast, bitches.